This is devotional number 282, and today's date is July 11th, 2017. We are taking a look at Genesis 22 this week, and I'll go ahead and read the first two verses. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt or test Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And yesterday we spoke a little bit about this idea of testing, and this applies all throughout history. Regardless of the time and season, believers always are being tested. And ultimately, in our day, God is seeking to purify his saints by various trials in order to bring about what we read in Malachi 3:3, for example. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Jehovah an offering in righteousness. This testing of the believers agrees also with what we read in 1 Peter 1:7, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glorying at the appearing of Jesus Christ. And so we read here in Genesis 22 about Abraham, called the friend of God, who is about to be tried by God in a very unique way, in accordance with what we read in Philippians 1:29. For unto you it is given in the behalf of Christ not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake. God calls for Abraham, as he did from time to time, and Abraham responds, Behold, here I am. And then in verse 2, we read these astonishing words. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Before delving into the details of this verse, think about this command very carefully for a minute. Put yourself in Abraham's shoes just for a moment, especially if you are a parent. God comes to you or to me and tells us to do the very same thing. Only you and I don't have this chapter of the Bible in front of you, so you can't read down towards the end of the chapter to see that God doesn't really want you or me to offer our child as a human sacrifice. More than that, God had previously explained to Abraham in Genesis 21:12, and God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight, because of the lad. This has to do with Ishmael. And because of the bondwoman, which would be Hagar, in all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Now, to drive home the point, God refers to Isaac 4 times in this verse. First he says, Take now thy son. Then he adds, thine only son, hearkening back to God's promise, which I just quoted in Genesis 21:12. Then God uses his name, Isaac. Finally, God makes the 4th and most poignant remark by the one Hebrew word, whom thou lovest. So let's take a closer look at the words, thine only son. which is Strong's number 3173, and whom thou lovest, which is 157, to see what God might teach us. Interestingly, the term thine only Son appears 2 other times in Genesis 22, in verse 12 and in verse 16, for a total of 3 times. And you might recall that the number 3 signifies the purpose of God. And the number 3 is used profusely in the events leading up to and including the crucifixion of the Lord Jesus Christ in 33 AD, as he was demonstrating in this living tableau what had taken place before the foundation of the world, when he actually made atonement for the sins of his people. And we're also going to see this as we go throughout this chapter. It's going to become more and more evident that this is what is in view in this historical parable. I'll read Genesis 22, 12 and 16. And he said, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And then in verse 16, and said, by myself have I sworn, saith Jehovah, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son. We find a similar account in Judges 11:30-40, having to do with Jephthah's vow to the Lord, as it turned out, which involved the sacrifice of his one and only daughter. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto Jehovah, and said, if thou shalt withal fail, deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be Jehovah's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and Jehovah delivered them into his hands. And he smote them from Aroer, even till thou come to Minnith, even 20 cities, and unto the plain of the vineyards, with a very great slaughter. Thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances, and she was his only child. This is our word, 3173. Beside her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass, when he saw her, that he rent his clothes, and said, alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and thou art one of them that trouble me. For I have opened my mouth unto Jehovah, and I cannot go back. And she said unto him, my father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto Jehovah, do to me according to that which hath proceeded out of thy mouth. For as much as Jehovah hath taken vengeance for thee of thine enemies, even of the children of Ammon. And she said unto her father, let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains, and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows. And he said, go. And he sent her away for 2 months, and she went with her companions, and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months, that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow which he had vowed, and she knew no man. And it was a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in a year. Lord willing, in our next devotional, we'll look at some of the other Old Testament passages which contain this very important word, thine only Son, and then perhaps we can transition to some New Testament passages as well.